What's going on, everybody? My name is Gage. This is Rob, Bill, and Brian. Welcome to the Muddy Roots. And today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to play a game called Devil's Advocate. So we're going to have let's take a cup real quick and I can explain that.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to play a little game. It's going to be a challenge. We're going to have a topic, and we researched the topic, and we're going to have a little discussion about it. And Vil is going to be the devil's advocate. So we all have our own opinions, and this is us on the podcast, you as viewers, but we all have our own opinions. We're going to go ahead and just see what we come up with. We're going to talk about, what are we talking about? Transgenders in sports.
Trans athletes.
In
general.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And so we're going to just...
Yeah, so the goal is the goal is for me, or for you guys to say your opinions, and then for me to challenge you. Whether I believe you or not, that's not the challenge. The challenge is for me to kind of test you in your beliefs. In that.
Bring some contrast and
Yep.
see how we do backing this up.
Yeah, I don't have much confidence in myself right now.
That is awesome.
So great.
I have a feeling he's gonna be like, "Yeah, what about this?" I'm gonna be like, "That's a good point."
Good point.
Damn.
Got me, buddy.
Damn.
I'm switching to scenes. Sides, teams.
So
Let's open it up.
let's open it. So yeah, transgenders playing sports.
So, do you guys think it's fair? What's your guys' sides with that? Do you guys think transgenders playing in sports in the opposite gender, obviously, so like they're born a man, transgender to a female, they're playing against females? Is that fair?
What do you think?
What? No,
Well,
go ahead. What you got?
I don't think it's
I'm the
fair
advocate,
at all.
so yeah.
I don't think it's fair, especially transgender men or men who are trans, playing in women's sports. That's definitely not fair, because if you look at it, men are predominantly stronger than women for the most part, right? If you're looking at like power lifters, you got Laura Hubbard, the dude that competed in the women's heavy lifting or whatever, and him taking it far. You got the swimmer
Leah Thomas.
Leah Thomas, who was born as William Thomas. I feel like those kind of guys, like, and I'm not trying to like dog it or whatever. I'm not trying to put them down. I feel like the reason why they switched is because they couldn't compete in their category.
Ooh, damn,
That's
that's
a bold
crazy.
statement.
Yeah, that's
So-
crazy.
The first thing I want to address in that is we need to respect the pronouns and stuff of trans people. So we're all pretty oblivious of it. We live in Utah, and also I don't have any trans people in my end. But so calling people men that turned women, the correct terminology is like a cis man or a biological man, instead of saying a man turned a woman.
So cis is a biological born male?
Yes, biological
or
man.
women.
Because if you just say a man who's now a woman, that doesn't sound correct. It's biological man. That's what they would prefer to be known as, a biological man turned into a transgender woman. Now, what you were saying, that statement of they didn't think they could compete at their level, I disagree with that. The reason is because some people think that they're actually a woman.
Yeah.
So they're not changing because they couldn't compete. I believe they're changing because they wanted to be a woman, and then now to compete, they're in the women's class. Does that mean none of them do that? No. I think there could be a couple out there that they're like, oh, it's a whatever. They think they can get an advantage until they switch. But even some of those guys, Leah Thomas won one race. The other ones didn't win. He also didn't set the record in that race that he won. The record is still held by a biological woman.
But how was it when he was racing against males? Because wasn't he like doing really bad against males?
Exactly.
And then he switches and then
He wins,
wins.
in the women category.
So yeah, so he won. Where it's at though is he still lost other races. He won one race, and then
It wasn't just a race though. It was the championship. He
Yeah.
he was the first openly transgender woman to win an NCAA Division I championship for Penn.
that's the thing that everyone focuses on though. They only focus on that one race, so the 500-meter freestyle.
Oh yeah, free. Yep, it was free.
But also the other two races that he competed in didn't do well. So in sports though, we've all been athletes. What separates the lowers from the people who aren't as good from the people who are good?
Practice.
Practice,
Dedication.
dedication, God-given ability. Like some of, even in men's sports as well, like there's some guys who are given height that I wasn't given.
Yeah.
So they're better. Women are the same thing. There's women that are born taller, women that are born stronger, women that are born with higher testosterone so they can build more muscles.
Mm-hmm.
There's even like girls like Ronda Rousey.
Rousey.
Mm-hmm.
She's a beast. And against an average male, she's probably winning.
Mm-hmm.
Like an
Without a
average
doubt.
biological male.
I wouldn't fight her
No. So
because I don't hit women. But nah, she would whoop bro. Anyway,
but so that's what sports are, right? We purposely choose athletes who are physically better, mentally better than the other ones. So if we have a woman, a biological man who decides to become a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and she's physically more gifted, why should she not compete?
Is she physically more gifted because she was a man?
Well, how many men are biological men or transgender women that don't compete because they couldn't compete?
I actually don't know the.
See that?
The
So
thing for that.
there's a lot of transgender women. What percent of them actually compete in the NCAA or the Olympics?
Well, the NCAA, there's about,
Leah Thomas.
yeah.
The
That's what we're
swimmer.
talking. Yeah.
The swimmer.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's the same person.
Yeah, it's the same
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, but
Right.
okay. So if you have, it's a big thing right now. Transgender women is a huge thing. So let's say, I don't know the data, and so don't quote us on this number. But there's 10,000 transgender women, and there's 100 of them playing sports. That's 1%.
Right.
mm-hmm.
So that's not a big deal if we only have 1% of all transgender women playing sports.
It's not a big deal. It isn't. And my thoughts are so I just think about like, imagine my sister training and doing this and doing whatever to try to go to college and win and do something to lose to somebody who is a trans woman. You see what I mean? Like having, and because of what you said, of males have more testosterone. Our body structures are different. The average male compared to an average woman, there's a difference. And that's why, I mean, way back into the caveman days, we were hunters and they were gatherers. It's just because of the physical difference. There's nothing like, but I'm not saying that there's, like you said, Ronda Rousey, like I'm not going to play 1v1 versus Brittany Griner or Liz Cambridge. I'm not going to do that. I would lose. But there are, on average, there is a difference. And so that transition for a man to go into a woman's sport and play, you don't think that they have an advantage?
So no. What I will say is, I'm glad you brought up the testosterone point. So in the NCAA and in the Olympics, they require your testosterone to be under a certain level.
Right.
To
Yep.
be, if you're a transgender man, or sorry, a transgender woman, you have to take certain hormones for estrogen and stuff like that to drop your testosterone so that you do not have that physical advantage.
Okay, but so I don't know the date, but say Leah, she transgendered she transitioned her gender into a woman at 25 years old. So for 25 years, she had more testosterone in her body than to just take estrogen pills and compete as a woman. So your wingspan is longer. You have a longer your wingspan. Your bones are denser. Your muscle mass is a little bit more. You have more muscle mass as a man. But for 25 years, you had all that testosterone, and it's kind of like, okay, well now I want to, but now I'm transitioning and I have to take estrogens because they mark my estrogen level, and now you're starting to drop it. But after you've already had this effect for however long before you transitioned.
So with the wingspan thing, that just goes back to some people are just gifted more than others. Because there are women in this world that have a higher wingspan or a longer wingspan than I do. There are women that have more muscle than I do. Some women have more dense bones than I do. So when a biological man transitions to a woman, some of them have advantages, just like some women, biological women, have advantages over other women.
That's wild to say though, because you're saying there are some cases or there's like this or in certain aspects, but generally men have longer wingspans because our bodies are structured differently and we are predominantly a bigger gender. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
just saying like, well, they may not have it or they may be in line with it or they might be longer, but it's like if you compare the average man to an average woman, and that's average, not
Yeah.
just in certain cases, the size difference is there.
You're right. So yeah, the average of a biological man and a biological woman, we are bigger,
Right.
but not all of them are. And so
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And then also, because we believe that those people are women now, even though they're a biological man, they chose to be a woman. You use the pronouns she and her if they want. If they do the whole surgeries to get some of their stuff removed and some other stuff put on, they're a woman at that point. So then their numbers, they're now part of the woman class. So that helps their average go up.
So
we have those men.
I have a question.
Those biological men.
Would it be wrong for them to say they have their like male parts? Could they still play against females? Because I might be wrong, but I think Leah Thomas didn't do the full transition yet, and she played, or she swam.
So that is one thing I did not find. So there is they call it like tucking or something like that. There's a method where you tuck certain clothes and stuff so you don't reveal your
Genitalia.
your genitalia and stuff. But again, the biggest thing that they did point out, and another thing with that testosterone thing, you had to be doing the hormone treatment for over 12 months before you could get in.
Before you can compete.
Before you
in
can
that
compete.
level?
That way you don't just have more testosterone and then a month before you compete reduce your testosterone. Like you have to be doing it for a while.
So 12 months.
12
So
months.
you don't have that. You don't have more testosterone. You just have, because he went to college and he competed in women's sports, or she competed in women's sports. So you have that 12-month period where you don't have that much testosterone. Just the 23 years before in life.
Correct.
Got it.
So again, it's not necessarily trying to word this in a correct way, because some women have more testosterone than other women too. That's just part.
Are
of it.
they taking estrogen pills?
No, because they produce more naturally.
Okay, so they're not going to cross that mark, right? Because you have to measure to compete. You have to measure and you have to have below a certain testosterone level.
I did not read if the women naturally go above that testosterone mark.
Okay.
I think the way I read it is just transgender women had to go under that mark. But like biological women, if they go above that mark, it's not a big deal. That's the way I interpreted it. Now, do your research because I didn't get that far into it. But no, I think there's some advantages for having transgender women competing in women's sports. One huge point of sports is the pay gap. And why do you guys think the pay gap is so different between WNBA and NBA? Viewers, but
revenue.
Why do viewers watch the NBA versus the WNBA?
Honestly, competition, like dunking,
all the crazy
alley-oops,
moves,
stuff like
You
that.
just
Yeah.
don't see that in
So-
the WNBA.
Right.
If we're able to have these transgender women who are women compete at a higher level, it helps that.
That's
'Cause if
a
you have
point I
these-
never thought of.
Yeah, if you have these women who come in and they can do that, they can do the dunking, they can do the alley oops, They can shoot it from half court. It brings more excitement to the games. You get faster times in track and field, brings more of an audience out there. Now, what that does is it brings the whole competition of every sport up, because women, biological women who want to compete against these transgender women, are going to have to work harder because they can't keep doing what they've been doing. Because we all, like you said, the average man is faster, stronger, whatever. But it'll help build them up as well. And
So, is that going to bring it up in a negative way or a positive way?
it'll bring it up. So right now, I think it's been negative for the last year because it's new. No one knows what it's doing. But soon as society recalibrates, I don't know what you want to use, like gets used to seeing transgender women and just accepts them for women and not a transgender woman, it'll become more exciting
Do you
to
think
see a
it'll
woman
ever?
dunk a ball.
Do
or
you think
something.
people will ever accept the fact that trans women, like if you were to watch TV, like WNBA, take that for example, do you think people would accept the fact that, oh, we got somebody that looks like Yao Ming, like that was biologically a guy playing in women's sports? Do you think people are ever gonna accept that?
Yes. The reason I accept that is back in the day, we used to have slaves with black people.
Right.
And people had the same conversation we're having now with black people playing sports. And they said, "Oh, they shouldn't be included. They should have their own leagues. We shouldn't allow them to play." And people were like, "Are we ever going to get used to watching a black person play basketball or a black person play baseball?" We're in that same zone right now where we're trying to be inclusive to some transgender people that's new to us. We don't really fully grasp it, but we are on the right road to including all of them and going that direction to where it's more normalized.
I also think that's kind of different in a ways because it's African Americans are born African Americans, like
Well, that's what
you're
transgenders believe, though.
choosing, or not choosing, but you're switching to being a female. I think it's way different to be like, should we let the African Americans play rather than should we let the transgenders play?
So transgenders believe that they were born that way too.
Mm-hmm.
They believe they were born a boy, but they're a girl on the inside. So it's the same thing as black people.
But
they believe they were born that way,
But
not
biologically they weren't.
biologically.
Because
no.
that was their belief. That was their belief. They believed that they were born a guy who thought that who thought that they were a girl. As of African Americans, they can believe what they want, but they were born African American.
Yes. So yeah, they are born biologically a gender. Now, that is not our right to say you can't switch.
Right.
I agree.
That's
Yeah.
also
Right,
not
yeah.
our right to tell them, hey, you can't play sports because you switched genders.
Yeah.
We need to be inclusive to all, just like we were for African Americans back in the day, for these transgender people coming up and wanting to play these sports.
But that's what I was trying to say was this is a tougher pill to swallow than the should African Americans play basketball.
Well, actually, kind of thinking about that too. Like African American people back in the day were thought to have they were born with higher athletic abilities.
Mm-hmm.
They were faster, they were stronger, they were quicker, and so back then they had the same conversation of, dude, they're just going to be better. And if you look at the NBA, you look at the NFL, they run it.
Yeah.
So they do have some athletic abilities that's better
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of scenarios, and so that's where the transgender women thing comes in. Is they're probably going to be a little bit better. They're probably going to be a little bit faster. They're probably going to be a little bit stronger. But is that negative for the sport? Is that negative for the games? Is it negative for the attention that it's going to get?
If you're to the point of professionalism to where you're trying to bring in revenue and views and generate that type of interaction from people, I don't think it's necessarily a bad move, but for college athletes who are there and they're trying to get to that point,
They've
and
been
they're
working so
losing,
hard, yeah.
and they're trying to they're playing for passion, not for money. You know what I mean? Like they're training and everything. I think that kind of throws a wrench in the mix.
Does it though? Because I played college football, and I wasn't good enough, and that there was no transgender men that were in my way stopping me. So no matter what, you're gonna have hurdles, whether it's a transgender person or whether it's a biological woman. You're gonna have to compete.
Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
so you played college football and you said you weren't good enough. If you were to transgender into a female and they had college football,
And then be a starter.
yeah, you would start immediately.
That's all hypothetical. I could probably say
is.
yes, but that is hypothetical, and I do not know the answer.
So I guess my issue, you could say, is when a man goes into a woman's sport and transitions and they play in women's sports because of that reason. If a woman were to transition to a man and compete, that to me is almost admirable. Like it's crazy because again, we are as men biologically bigger and stronger and everything, but I just think that it's crazy because if they're transitioning and then they take a starting position or they take first place and then a biological woman loses and just like, well,
It's not fair to them for training so hard.
right.
To the fact that, okay, well, I lost because this person is predominantly bigger than me, stronger than me, more physical than I am. You know what I'm saying? I feel that that's not fair. I feel as if, and I don't know how you guys would take this, but I think that the women should compete in the women's sports, men in the men's sports, and then they should have a category with transgenders. And I'm not trying to like isolate them. I'm not trying to push them away. Like, yeah, you can express who you are, express what you believe in, but I feel like in sports alone, everything should be.
Well, so they tried to do that with black people back in the day, though. They tried to have their own leagues. They tried to have their own schools because we didn't want to include them.
Segregation.
Segregation.
Yeah,
So-
that's a good combating argument to your proposal.
Mm-hmm.
But
Now, with the whole transgender men competing in men's sports, it's honorable, it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're doing good things. Why can't it go the other way? It's like a one-way street where if you're a transgender man and you play sports and you're like on a pedestal because you're competing at a higher level, but all of a sudden you're a transgender woman and it's looked at like, oh, you're competing with the lesser sex.
it's a great question. But I think it's because of the likelihood of a woman trying to transition to being a man and being successful in sports. This is just sports talk right now, but yeah, I think that's why.
I think one thing too is transgender women aren't dominating. Like they're not stepping in and just destroying everything. They don't hold records yet. All the records are still held by biological women.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people think, oh, these transgender women are just coming in and taking over. You heard 3 stories, but how many events, or we talked about 2 today. I know of a couple others. So let's say there's 5 total transgender women that are dominating versus how many track and field events, how many basketball teams, how many whatever. So you hear 5 stories out of, let's say, 100 events that are performed a year. That's only 5% of the winners are transgender women versus biological women.
Now, not
Now.
right, but that's not so. That doesn't mean it'll be like that forever.
No.
And records are meant to be broken. You know what I mean? So, although now it's only 4 or 5, whatever the number you said,
Yeah.
but although it's only to a certain minute or limit right now, that's just early as it is right now. I mean, because Leah Thomas was, you could say, the one that sparked a lot of this controversy and these topics. That's super new. 2021, 22. It's been a year or 2 since she won the championship, and there's 5. So if you 10 15 years down the line, women are even going to be winning.
Same thing with black people, though, because that was the story.
I hate that comparison. I hate the comparison that you're comparing slavery to transgender women and the struggles that they are going through now and thinking that it's kind of the same situation. I get like that black people, African Americans were excluded from a lot of things, but to include that and think that it's the same as men going into women's sports or vice versa is a huge reach to me.
So what makes you feel like it's so different? Is it just the slavery part? Because obviously they were
Again,
both
just
oppressed.
the slavery part.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying though. It's like there's a lot that goes into like black people trying to get into sports. So was it the slavery part that you're stuck with, or is it because there's obviously a lot of the oppression type stuff, the segregation type stuff, the not being allowed to do certain things? A lot of it is very similar. The slavery is a completely different thing. That yes, it's terrible, horrible.
But that played into reasons of why they could not participate in normal society and sports or anything, schooling. Like that played a part. Like you're excluding reasons why they weren't accepted and allowed.
The reason that they were all that segregated and all that happened, or not the reason, but it happened way after slavery. It kept going because white people looked down on them, said, "Oh, they're dumb, whatever." They called them a bunch of names and said they can't compete at the same level. They can't be with our students. That's exactly where we're at with trans people. Is we look at them as less. We look at them as
We look at them as they're over competing.
Yeah, we don't look at
they
them as
have the
less.
advantage.
I know, but why can't we let them still compete?
It's because they have the advantage that they've lived with testosterone their whole life. They've built their bodies up with testosterone, and then for a year they don't have it.
Yeah, but same thing with black people. Black people are faster than
Yeah, but they
the
were.
average.
It's not like it's their skin color that made them.
It's not their physical abilities of what kept them out of the league or what kept them out of schools.
Wait, so what are we talking about? So, because my argument on that is that black people are physically dominant compared to, on average, than most other races. That's why they run the NBA. That's why they run the NFL. So just because a transgender woman might be physically dominant over a biological woman, she should still be able to compete.
You took that a different way.
Yeah,
than
I
was.
don't know if I'm understanding where you guys are going with
My
this.
thing was comparing trans people into switching into different sports is not the same as not letting African Americans into a league, a school, or anything because they're not the same situation. Because it's not based off of gender or physical abilities. One was based off of years, hundreds of years of oppression versus me wanting to take estrogen and switching my gender role and now competing. They're two different things, but you're using it as an argument and grouping them, and I think that's a reach.
I'm just not really grasping what you're saying because so obviously we allowed I don't know. I'm just struggling to see what perspective are you taking into this? Because we've talked about how blacks are more athletic and all that, so that's how the transgender women are. We talked about the oppression, so that's a very similar. And then I'm struggling to see what that other side that you're coming from at.
I guess along those lines, oppression is still crazy to me because they aren't going through the same oppression and struggles that slavery and African Americans did in early American history is my thing. And comparing the two, saying, because both are oppressed, sure, but you're summing up 400 years of oppression to match transgenders' oppressions. I'm not saying that they're not being oppressed. I'm just saying comparing the two and thinking that you can group it is a huge reach.
The thing I will say, and I agree with you a little bit on this, is the African American community, the black community, started the movement. So yes, they were oppressed for a lot longer. They went through a lot more stuff than transgender people because they were the first. Took a lot of power, a lot of motivation, a lot of all that kind of stuff for them to get out of their oppression. That doesn't mean we downplay the transgender one just because they were able to do it faster because the African Americans, the black community, was able to move it the first time. So now from here on, it was the black people, then it's the women, now it's the transgender. But we don't downplay that they weren't oppressed or not oppressed as bad just because the black people, they did it first. The African Americans, they did it first. No one else knew how to do it. Now that we have what we have, the media that we have, the influences that we have, transgenders, yes, they were able to do it faster, but that doesn't mean it was easy.
No one said it wasn't.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that they're not oppressed. I think that, and I'm just reiterating myself, but like grouping the different types of oppression and the different, I guess, timeline is it's huge. It's a huge gap, and I think that that's crazy to just kind of compare it and think that it's similar. But
yeah, so yeah, I think we're kind of on the same wavelength because their oppressions are different, timelines were different. It's just hard for me to put that aside and say, oh, you know what, theirs was worse, so we can't compare it. So that's where I'm kind of at with that. Now, would you guys like to talk about anything other than sports with the transgender people, or you guys want to keep on sports?
Can we take a cup real quick and?
let's take a
I would
cup.
love it.
But there's the transgenders using bathrooms. I think if they have the parts as a male, they should be using them.
It should be designated to their bathroom.
So, is it just if they still have their male parts or female parts and they haven't fully converted yet?
Yeah,
That's me.
Okay, I will actually second that. The reason is there's a lot of things that can happen when. Sorry,
No, you're good.
we had a mic stand kind of fall apart. That's why I'm holding my mic. But no, in that argument, it's very hard to argue like, oh, a transgender woman who still has the genitalia and all that can get naked in a locker room or something with biological women. So I will actually agree with that one. I know I'm supposed to play devil's advocate, but that's one it's hard to spin. Now, if they're switched, if they have done the surgery, then it should be okay.
I agree. Yeah,
Yeah, I agree too.
no harm, no foul.
I think we got what we wanted.
Mhm.
I loved that challenge. It was intense for me. Hella uncomfortable for a little bit because I'm actually more along the side with you guys. I struggle with seeing biological men come in and do well in these sports with biological women. But doing my research and stuff, it actually did open my eyes a little bit.
That's good. You did really good at like
Mm-hmm.
going with the other side that you don't believe in,
Yeah.
and it really shows that you have an open mind. So
That is awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. I don't know. You guys let us know what you guys thought about this challenge because I actually thought it was fun. It was good. It got intense for a minute, especially just feeling like you're 1v3. But I felt like we all kept it pretty civil. We all kept open minds. When none of us kept it or took it personal. Like, oh, you're an idiot. Like none of us did that. Like we heard each other out, listened to each other. But yeah, I hope you guys like those kind of challenges because that was fun.
I think that'd be fun to
Yeah,
do.
and by all means, we're not dogging we're not dogging the LGBTQ plus. We're just trying to see both sides of the story
Yeah.
with the people that we have.
When you guys said like, oh, well, let's do devil's advocate, let's do it on this. I actually did a lot of my research, way more than my belief system. It's crazy because there's a lot of things that you were saying. I was like, oh yeah, that's good, that's good, man. Because I agree, and that, like if you want to transition to be the opposite gender that you were born as, I think that's perfectly fine. I think that you are able to do that, and I think that you should respect it. I think that, like, if you want to be called by a certain pronoun or by a certain, you want to go by something else, that's fine. Everyone should be whatever they want to be.
Yep.
But for the sake of the challenge, dude, I was really trying to dig, and you were combating a lot of my stuff, and it was pretty crazy.
One thing I do want to kind of apologize is for using Black history and kind of comparing it to the transgender movement. There is a lot of similarities, but kind of like you were saying, There's a lot of differences.
Did you really not see the comparison on what Gage was saying?
I really didn't. No,
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't see where you were trying to spin it from.
So when no,
Because I was trying to so hard so that I could again try to spin it and try to combat you, but I just couldn't get what you were trying to say. But no, I hope I didn't offend any of our like black viewers, any of our African Americans who watch this, because there is a lot of differences, and I know that. I was just trying to play the devil's advocate, open minds for each other. I think we did that. I think we did a good job of showing one side, also showing the other, so that people can really analyze what their belief systems are and go from there. So,
right on.
but I think we're ready.
Yep.
Appreciate you guys. That was fun. I got a little sweaty in the middle of it, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. So let us know if you want us to do it again. But we'll catch you guys next week on the next podcast.
Have a good day.
Appreciate it.